Hey there, and welcome back to my kitchen garden. If you've been watching regularly, you have seen the growth of these crops week after week. But what if your crops aren't growing at the same pace? Maybe your plants are sitting there looking the exact same size as they were last week, or they've turned pale, droopy, or just plain sad. Today I'm sharing 3 common reasons your plants might not be growing and how to fix each one. These aren't just guesses. I'll explain the science behind what's happening and give you real practical solutions to get your garden back on track. And if you've brought in compost or hay mulch, there's a hidden danger you really need to know about. The entire reason I wanted to share this with you today came from 2 separate conversations from 2 different friends in 2 different states in the course of 2 days. Back in May, I went to New York City to work with a ministry there. We helped plant a community garden among different things. And while I was there, I got to connect with a student of mine who lived in Staten Island. She was excited to show me her garden, and I was excited to see all she had planned. It was amazing to see everything that she had dreamed of come to life. But there was one particular bed she brought me to, and she said, I don't understand why my crops in this bed aren't growing. Specifically, she had planted peas. And right away, what I could tell about her garden is that the soil had a lot of bark content inside. When I picked up the soil, I could see the bark in my hand. To me, this was the smoking gun. It's why the crops in that bed weren't growing. And then a couple of days later, I received a text from a friend back in Arkansas, and he was having the exact same trouble. He couldn't understand why his crops weren't growing, and they were starting to yellow a little bit as well. The video that he sent me showed a very similar picture. Lots of bark content in this soil. Again, the same thing, the same raised bed, maybe different bagged soil, but still the same problem. So what was the problem in both of these raised beds? Why is having too much bark or woody material in the soil problematic? Well, the problem is that this can actually rob your plants of the nutrients they need. Temporarily. You see, when compost isn't fully broken down, especially when it includes a high amount of bark or wood, it continues to decompose in your garden. That process requires nitrogen, which soil microbes will tie up to finish decomposition. But guess what nutrient your plants need the most of? That's right, nitrogen. So if soil microbes are using the nitrogen in the soil to break down the bark pieces, this leaves less available nitrogen for your plants. Besides seeing the bark pieces in your soil, how do you know that this could be a problem? In your plants, you could observe pale yellowing leaves, especially for the older leaves. You may see stunted growth, but there's also no obvious signs of pests or diseases. This is what I saw firsthand in my friend's garden in New York and in the videos of a friend back in Arkansas. Clear, shredded bark was visible. Compost that's fully broken down into a form that our gardens will love shouldn't have much, if at all, visible bark pieces. So if you're just starting a new raised bed and maybe you have 1 or 2 and you don't have access to bulk compost or bulk topsoil and you have to go with a bagged soil, what do you need to do? My recommendation is to inspect the bagged soil if you can. One day my husband and I went to Lowe's and I decided to take a look at the different bagged options. I don't personally use bagged soils in my gardens because I have so many raised beds that I buy in bulk, so this wasn't something I had a lot of familiarity with. But I was able to see right away that there are differences in the soils that you buy. The first thing that I did is I found the specific soil that I knew my friend here in Arkansas bought. Usually when you're going to a nursery or a garden center, there's going to be a couple of bags that have busted open. So I'm not telling you to bust open the bags yourself. But what I was able to find with one that happened to already be opened was I was able to see how much bark content that particular soil had that he bought. In contrast, I went to other brands and other types of soil, and I was able to see one in particular. It was actually Miracle-Gro's organic soil. It had hardly any bark content. So I knew between the 2 of those that the best one to choose would have been the one that was Miracle-Gro's organic, and I think it was branded as raised bed soil. Now, I'm not a big fan of raised bed soils because I feel like it's kind of all marketing, but honestly, that particular soil looked better. And then once I shared this on Instagram, I had people tell me they've used that soil and it worked well. Is it because it was Miracle-Gro organic? I don't think so necessarily. I think it was because it didn't have those obvious bark pieces that needed to have nitrogen to continue breaking down. So if you're starting a new raised bed, inspect the bags that you can and find the ones that don't have obvious bark pieces inside. But what if you did already fill your raised bed with that and you're seeing all of this problem in your garden? What can you do? Well, you can start over with a different soil mix, which is what my friend here in Arkansas decided to do. But if you don't want to do that, the good news is that over time, the wood material that is already in your raised bed will decompose and your soil should be fine. But that could take a few months. In the meantime, what you need to do is add more nitrogen to the soil so that there's enough nitrogen to help break that bark down and for your plants both. I would recommend opting for a slow release, nitrogen focused granular fertilizer like Espomus Plant Tone. This is going to feed your plants for a longer period of time. But you might also want a quick fix, especially if your plants are suffering. And for this, I would opt for a liquid organic fertilizer, such as fish emulsion. Make sure to read the directions on the label for the application rates to use. Hopefully within a week or two, you will see your plants perk up. But if the soil is really bark heavy and it's early in the season, like my friend did, you may opt to replace the soil and use what you have as a top layer of mulch. I love wood chip mulch, and on top of the soil, it actually does a really great job and it doesn't tie up nitrogen at the root source. But inside the soil, it's for sure problematic. But here's another concern to consider. If you've added compost, manure, or a hay-based mulch recently and your plants are twisting, curling, or growing strangely, there's a chance it's not about the nutrients. It could actually be herbicide contamination. Aminopyralid herbicides and those similar are persistent weed killers used on hay fields and pastures. They can survive composting, and they often show up in commercial bagged products, hay, and horse and cow-based manure and compost. Signs to watch for here is that the new growth looks twisted, deformed, or even fern-like. Leaves curl downward or grow with shoestring-like narrowing, and growth slows dramatically at the tops. I have personally had this happen in my garden, and it was so discouraging. And the problem here is backed by research. Aminopyralid contamination has been documented by university extensions, and it is a known problem for home gardeners. And not only is it found in compost, manures, and even some soil blends, I've also had people here in my state have the same experiences with their leaves twisting and curling. And what they were able to figure out later was that a crop duster was spraying some of the agricultural land nearby. This is called herbicide drift, and it can devastate your garden if it happens. What should you do if you suspect that your soil or your compost could be contaminated? What you can do is take some of the compost or the suspected soil and plant beans or tomatoes in it next to a control plot. If the test plot shows signs of twisting, you've likely got chemical residue. The solution here is don't plant in the contaminated soil. It can take 1 to 3 years to fully break down. Consider container gardening with fresh soil if this affects a large part of your garden. This is a devastating blow if this happens to you, but the sooner that you can catch it, the better off you'll be. We've spent a lot of time talking about the soil because really the soil would be the #1 culprit if you notice that your crops aren't growing well. But there are a couple other reasons that it might be. Reason number 2 is not enough sunlight. It might sound obvious, but too little sun can stall your garden, especially for fruiting crops like tomatoes, peppers, squash, and cucumbers. So how much sun do plants actually need? This is a good rule of thumb that I always keep in mind. Crops that produce a fruit or a root need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, but usually the more the better. Leafy greens, though, can get away with 3 to 5 hours of sun. They don't need as much as your fruiting crops. And in fact, leafy greens can actually perform better underneath the shade of some of our fruit-producing crops. But sunlight is really important for most of our garden plants. According to a Cornell University gardening guide, tomato plants given under 6 hours of light produced 70% fewer fruits than those in full sun. But I know sometimes it's hard to realize how little sun that your garden may get. I know that was the case for me with my large garden because over time my pine trees started leafing out more and more, and I didn't realize that every year my garden was getting less and less shade. It wasn't until I planted in this kitchen garden and I planted some of the same crops here as I did in my big garden that I realized that there was a huge difference in the amount of growth when the crops got full sun. Trees leafing out and casting new shade is just one thing that you may not notice, but also if you're gardening on the north side of structures, this could be a problem. Or you might misjudge partial sun. Dappled shade is not the same thing as partial sun. Partial sun means that your garden gets a certain amount of full sun during the day, but maybe not for the entire day. Dappled shade may mean that your crops are underneath the tree, and those are two different things. If you suspect your garden isn't getting enough sun, what can you do about it? First, you can track the sun. Use a sunlight tracking app or just mark shadows every 2 hours to get a real picture. I personally haven't done this because it takes a long time, and what I realized as I got into gardening, and this may sound obvious, but I didn't realize it before, is that your sun tracks differently different times of year. So the amount of sun you get in June or July is going to be very different from the amount of sun you get in February or October. Another thing to consider if you're very limited on the amount of full sun that you have, consider reflective surfaces like a white fence or aluminum sheets or anything like a light mulch that can bounce extra light onto your plant. Another thing you might consider is thinning out some of your trees overhead, or consider taking 1 or 2 of them down. While I'm not an advocate of taking down trees in general, we have plenty of pine trees on our property, and we ended up taking 2 down that I knew would bring extra sunlight into our big garden. Next, replant wisely. Move some of your shade-tolerant crops like herbs or lettuce into the less sunny spots, and give your sunniest space to your fruiting crops or those that produce roots. Once you see the difference sunlight makes, you'll realize how important it is to plant strategically. Reason number 3 that your plants may be stunted is overwatering. Overwatering is surprisingly easy to do, especially in raised beds or containers where you can't always tell what's happening below the surface. Here's what happens when you overwater. When your plants are overwatered, the roots suffocate. Plants need oxygen at the root zone, just like they need water. Pathogens can thrive because overly wet soil invites fungal issues like root rot and other fungal diseases. You also have nutrient uptake that stalls. Waterlogged roots can't get access to nutrients, even if the nutrients are present in the soil. Symptoms to watch for here would be yellowing lower leaves, drooping, which is ironically what looks like when your plants need water. So always check the soil moisture with your hand before assuming that you need to water some more. And slow growth despite fertilizing. Also, test it. Like I said, put your finger in the soil, and if you notice that it's soggy or compacted, your plants are probably getting too much water. So what can you do to prevent and correct overwatered soil? My first recommendation is to use mulch. Mulch conserves moisture, but it also regulates evaporation, so you don't have to guess or overcompensate. It also acts as a sponge during heavy downpours. Next, choose the right time to water. I recommend watering in the early morning and water deeply but less frequently. Many plants thrive with being able to dry out just a little bit between waterings. I set my GardenInMinutes garden grids on a timer to water near sunrise, and heading into the summer, I'll opt for longer periods of watering, usually around 30 minutes every 2 to 3 days, depending on how hot it is, instead of short bursts of watering every day. Next, try to improve drainage. If your soil or raised beds stay soggy, try to mix in more compost. Compost helps aerate the soil, and it helps the soil compaction not be as bad. Just like most things in your garden, try to keep an eye on it. Try to have an idea how much rain you're getting and how much watering you're doing. That way you're not overwatering your plants on accident. Sometimes the reason your garden isn't thriving isn't because you're doing too little. It's that something unseen is holding your plants back. So check your soil, especially if it looks chunky with bark. Track how much sunlight your plants are really getting, and double check your watering habits. A few small adjustments now can completely turn your garden around. While these are very common reasons your plants might be stunted, sometimes we can't always know for sure. More observation, continual testing is what we all have to do in our garden. And if you want more help troubleshooting and keeping your garden healthy through the rest of the summer, I'm having a live summer garden workshop on June 17th, 2025. We'll talk about plant care, disease prevention, organic pest control, and more. I would love to see you there, and the link is in the description.